Good evening. I'm Jane Burkhardt of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County, and on behalf of the League, the NAACP, and the News Gazette, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. This portion of tonight's forum is for candidates for the Champaign City Council District 1. The candidates are Gina Jackson and William Kiles. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I will then ask questions submitted by the audience. Candidates will each have 1 minute to answer these questions. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Again, I'll say for you in the audience, we hope that you have questions and we'll write them on cards that are being distributed. We shall begin by an earlier toss. Ms. Jackson will give the first opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, NAACP, and the City of Champaign for conducting this forum. Good evening. My name is Gina Jackson. I was born and raised in Champaign, Illinois. I went into the military from private and parochial schools, having attended private and parochial schools here in Champaign-Urbana. I embarked on a 23-year career into the military, and then I came home. And what I did then was I got involved. I saw that there were some things lacking in our community and that the folks in District 1 needed a voice. So I got involved. I was appointed to the Champaign Planning Commission, the City of Champaign Liquor Commission, the Champaign County Mental Health Board, Champaign County Children's Advocacy Board, and the Champaign County Head Start Policy Board. Also elected as a 2008 delegate to the Democratic National Convention, and also elected City of Champaign City Council District 1 representative. And I'm running for Champaign City Council because there's been a stagnation in District 1 in the last 4 years. Things that were put in place when I was on council, as far as the progress being made, as far as commercial, neighborhood commercial being put in, as far as infrastructure being worked on, it seems to have stagnated. And there are also portions of the district that feel that they're lacking in representation, especially those folks in the core neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kiles.
Good evening. My name is William Kiles II, and I am running to be your representative for the City Council District 1 seat as a re-election. I would like to take a brief moment to thank the News Gazette, the Women in the League Voters, and the NAACP, as well as the City of Champaign for hosting this event. This journey starts as a young 26-year-old man sitting in my opponent's living room and making her a promise to serve the people. And you know, to me, her trust in me meant a lot. And so later on, the support of her and the support of the community that I would get from numerous people empowered and inspired me to work. From there, I spent 4 years promising to work on the impossible and connecting people to a process that they felt left out. I built a reputation of serving people and building relationships and healing broken relationships. I put people before myself, and more important than anything, we have delivered results. We reversed the street signs for Bristol Park, where people felt trapped, caged, and left for desolation. Not only that, I'm working on a plan along with council and staff to revive and rebuild Bristol Park. When the Great Gateway crisis came up, we made sure that everyone at that facility had a temporary place to stay. We made a significant investment over the last 3 years in our children, $275,000 with the Summer Youth Employment Plan. Working on completing a subdivision, Taylor Thomas Lane, that ran out of money, and now by the summer we're going to have 2 homes valued at a total of $300,000. Speaking of infrastructure, we signed, sealed, delivered, completed the North 4th Street Extension Project. This allowed 2 entrances and exits for the Douglas Square community And has allowed, as you see, Love Corner to develop. These are just some of the things that I've done and worked on, and I'm asking for your support for election April 9, 2013.
Thank you. Our first question, and we'll start with Mr. Kiles. Should Champaign conduct systematic inspections of the inside of rental apartments to ensure that they are maintained in safe condition and up to code?
My answer is yes, and obviously there's going to be a lot of discussion about that process and what that means. But that's going to be one of the main strategies, I believe, in improving Garden Hill's housing structure, and quite frankly, housing structure across the city. I think it's very important to not only hold the tenant responsible, but I think that it's very important and crucial to hold the landlord responsible. So in order to improve those areas, I think that we are going to have to take a look at that.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson?
Yes, I believe that's a very, very strong part of our neighborhood services nuisance ordinance, which, as a matter of fact, was actually proposed when I was on city council. We met quite a bit of opposition from the property owners that own the rental property. But for safety's sake and to stabilize neighborhoods, this, I feel, is another tool to be used in the toolbox, which really needs to be exercised, not only in Garden Hills, but also in the older core neighborhoods.
Thank you. This question says, do you know what, if any, plans there are for redevelopment of the Amarin property? What will you do to support the involvement of neighborhood residents in planning for that development or any other major property? Ms. Jackson first.
While I was on council, before leaving council, one of the main things that I wanted to accomplish was to make sure that Amarin was on track, especially with the Fifth and Hill group, with giving them all the raw data they needed, with cooperating with the folks in the neighborhood, giving them the assistance they might need, and all the information that was needed, and that the Amarin site would be cleaned up to the highest standard possible. That was a very, very, very long road to hoe. But I had always planned for hopefully neighborhood commercial to be in that area, so folks wouldn't have to go all the way across town to get the supplies they need, and also to bring more employment to that area so folks can work and live in the same place. So I hope it's developed as neighborhood commercial, and that's what I would fight for.
Thank you. Mr. Cox?
As the Champaign County Black Chamber of Commerce president, of course, you would know that I would support neighborhood commercial. Quite frankly, coming in, the citizens of Fifth and Hill did not feel as if, and still don't feel as if, things are being held to standard and done correctly. So my goal is to make sure that we are following up, and I'm following up with the IEPA, Amarin, to make sure that not only on paper do we do the citizens feel like their needs are being met, but also just in practice.
Thank you. Sort of going along with that, there are several questions about the Boneyard Creek project and environmental testing. Would you like to talk just a little bit more about that, Mr. Kiles?
We're going to, as we transition into different phases of the Boneyard, we are going to have to look at and continue to evaluate the safety and safety of the project in the Boneyard as it pertains to if there's contamination. So we're going to do a study. We're going to make sure that things are done and held to standard.
Ms. Jackson?
It's always been a concern, and when I was on council, I had the city do a study on the Muhammad Aquifer and what the effect of the Fifth and Hill property would have on the aquifer, because that is our prime source of drinking water, and we have some of the best water in the United States. the testing as the Boneyard Creek third phase starts, which will be coming across University, it's imperative that we hold Ameren's feet to the fire to, one, make sure that they do the proper testing, and two, that they produce the raw data that is needed so groups like Healthcare Consumers and the Fifth and Hill Group can take that information and get it analyzed.
Thank you. The next question says, what were your roles in the North 4th Street extension? I don't know if that's a repetition, but could you speak to that, Ms. Jackson?
Prior to me being elected to the Champaign City Council, I was on the Champaign Planning Commission. At that point in time, some of the projects that were brought up and added into the council goals as far as the 5, 10, and 20-year goals, one was the Douglas Square project along with the North 4th Street, because eventually North 4th Street will be going straight through to Olympia Drive, and that is one of the things that I had wanted to see come full circle. But my involvement on that was from the front end as far as the conception, and that it was always supposed to be done in conjunction with Douglas Square because there was not enough access, exit and access roads next to Douglas Square for emergency vehicles.
Mr. Kiles.
The North 4th Street extension had been on the books for years. What I did was kept it every time that it came to the council as a goal and a priority. I made sure that my council members my colleagues were aware that this was a significant project that was imperative not only for the emergency exits, but it also helped with the development of the Love Corner Church. So I met with community leaders, I met with staff, I met with council on a monthly cycle. Afterwards, we reviewed the plans and made sure everything was good to go. I voted on the dollars that was appropriated to this project, and I followed up with staff on, again, a monthly cycle to make sure that the project was done on a timely basis, and now it's complete.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
I'd like to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I actually had asked you that question before. Right. There I am. What are the challenges facing District 1, and how do you plan on meeting those challenges? But that's Mr. Kiles first.
The three major challenges, of course, are essentially making sure that we provide core services and make sure that we have do it under a balanced budget. More importantly, outside of that, we have to also make sure that we continue to improve the minority and community police relationships. We've made a lot of headway, but we've got a long road to go. And so we've got to continue to inspire. We got to continue to motivate people and use the plans such as the Community Coalition and ensure that, that plan is not just something on the books, but something that is actually working. You also have to work with the employment issue. There are a lot of people in my district that suffer from unemployment. Some of them due to felonies, and we have to really dig down and work on that.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Now.
Yes, first and foremost, one of the main problems is safe neighborhoods. Everybody wants to live in a safe neighborhood. Secondly, you have deteriorating neighborhoods. The core neighborhoods have a problem. They have older sewers. Some of them have non-existing sidewalks. And a lot of them don't have street lights and curbs. The next issue is neighborhood stability. What has to happen is when you have a high owner-occupied to rental ratio, you have a neighborhood that is starting to decay, is starting to be unstable, that a lot of the residents don't care about their property, and that causes tension with the homeowners, and it causes a serious safety issue.
Thank you. There's still questions coming up about the Illinois EPA. This says, Fifth and Hill residents are finding Illinois EPA to be very unresponsive about their concerns about the Ameren toxic site. What would you do to ensure that Illinois EPA responds to the needs and concerns of the Fifth and Hill neighborhood people? That would start with Ms. Jackson.
When I was on council, when the Illinois IPA and Ameren at times were unresponsive, I had a meeting. We called everybody in and let them know, because the city was going to be overwatch, what was expected and what needed to be done for the citizens of Champaign. With the unresponsiveness, I found out with different intergovernmental communications and working with our legislators, we seem to get through to the federal agencies, state and federal agencies, which are governed, and they get a lot of their funding, and they take dictations from our legislators. So, and we didn't have as much problem when I was on council with the Illinois IPA. They seem to be pretty receptive, but we can all come to the table and definitely get our legislators in there with us so we can get the responses we need.
Thank you. Mr. Kiles?
Part of what I've done best is build relationships. I built relationships with the current congressman, and so bringing him into the room and bringing him up to date of what's going to be, what this issue is, and the unresponsiveness on the federal level is going to be key and important. Also, I've already made connections with the top people at the state, and you know, we all know people who know people who know people is very important. And so using my connections throughout the state, I will basically be able to say, hey, we need to talk to someone that's important and who can make a decision and really respond to the people. This is something that I'm going to do regardless of the results of the election, because this is my community, this is my neighborhood, it's where all of our children play in, and quite frankly, as the Black Chamber of Commerce president, I am also interested in the economic development of that area, and so we're going to work on that regardless.
Thank you. What can you do to work with the other members of the Champaign City Council? Mr. Kiles.
One of the things that that I've always done is communicated to my team members. I've always put their names a lot of times before mine, so that people always knew that it wasn't just one person working on the issue, but it was 9 people working on the issue. Throughout my 4-year tenure in council, I've worked with just about every council member on a key issue, whether it was improving legislation on the Fifth and Hill toxic site, working on the North 4th Street extension, working for honorary street signs, working to bring in, as Garden Hills came in, working with to develop a plan on housing infrastructure and job employment, being on the grounds with the individuals who were losing their houses at Gateway, and the Fifth and Hill. I was the person that encouraged council to go over and meet with the citizens, and they did that. So I think that I've done a lot to encourage and work with my team and deliver results.
Ms. Jackson?
I'd like to make a comment to that. Previously, all that had been done with the Fifth and Hill group. They had met with the city numerous times here, at their meeting locations, and also Ameren had set up many meetings so the Fifth and Hill group could come in and go ahead and ask their questions and see where we were at that point in time. During my time in council, I had a wonderful working relationship. The main thing you have to remember, everybody gets 1 vote. So, and you need 5 votes to pass something. So you have to be able to work and know what's important to other people on the council, because they need to know what's important to you and the people in your district. so they can support you on the vote.
This says the city, perhaps this isn't true, the city has a plan to tear down all the houses in the neighborhood as a method of redevelopment. Do you agree with this plan, Ms. Jackson?
No, I don't agree with that plan. I had implemented what we call the Douglas Infill Program when I was on city council, which if there was an old deteriorated house or an empty lot, that the city would build an affordable house on there using local contractors. So that means that the money would stay in Champaign, and that would create additional jobs, and the housing was affordable. But no, I don't agree with tearing down all the houses in the neighborhood. One of my prize projects was the Douglas Square, which used to be Birch Village, where I used to live. I was born in Birch Village. That was a different story because it was actually housing authority property. So when you're talking about private citizens, that's a different story. But when you're dealing with federal property, housing authority property, that gives you a different leeway and you can clear the land.
Thank you, Mr. Kiles.
Under my opponent's plan, it yielded I believe it was 6 or 7 houses in probably 7 years. If you're referring to the Bristol Park development plan, if you drive through Bristol Park, it's not what I want, it's what the people want. The people have said we need to do something with Bristol Park. The people have met with the city. They've sat through numerous meetings and made an expression that we need to do something about the crime, we need to do something about the housing. And so while the citizens, I've talked to several of them, are not so excited about the redevelopment, meaning that they'd have the relocation and things along that nature, they are excited about what Bristol Park will look forward to in the future. So to wrap it up, I am supporting what the citizens want, and the citizens have said that they support the Bristol Park plan.
Thank you. We've reached the end of the time scheduled for this portion of the forum, so we will now proceed to the 2-minute closing statements. We'll begin with Ms. Jackson.
Being a lifelong resident of Champaign, going back generations, my parents, my grandparents, they have worked and contributed blood and sweat and tears, not only just to the city of Champaign, but to District 1 in particular. It's very dear to my heart. During my absence, I had a 4-year absence, which was due to illness in my family. I do not regret the choice of focusing on family. But I hope that you realize that with my dedication, bringing neighborhood commercial, bringing county market, which bridged the campus and the north end, bringing a Family Dollar, which meant people didn't have to go all the way across town for bread and milk and could also find jobs there, for working with the Douglas Square program, stabilizing neighborhoods. And while, even though I was not District 1 representative, with Garden Hills, we increased, working with Vic McIntosh, we increased the lighting on Hedge Road. In 2008, we redid most of all of the streets in Garden Hills. But nothing has happened there since I have left council. I feel the need to pick up where I left off, and if the people of District 1 and Champaign would give me the opportunity and feel in their heart to represent them again, I would appreciate if they vote for me, Gina Jackson, April 9th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kiles.
Again, my name is Will Kiles, and I'm asking for your vote of confidence, April 9th, 2013. Beyond any rhetorical conversation, the one thing that I advise the voter to do is just analyze both of our records and look at the results. I only have one request: that you cast your vote not based on false promises, not based on party or family member or longtime friend. If you care about the progress of our community, I just ask that you look at our records, our service, and then cast your vote. You will find that under my opponent's record, police and community relationships declined, while under my tenure, they have new life. You will find that under my opponent's record, teens were given programs, and under mine, teens were given jobs. And you will see that minority and women-owned programs were given attention, but under mine, they were focused on with intention and results. You will see that the North 4th Street was just a project, while under my leadership, it became an item. Keeping the project up at the forefront, now it is complete. You will see that she encouraged her own voice to speak, while I encouraged many neighborhood voices to be heard. I encouraged partnerships and council, even promoted them before me. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought I would be running against the very person that opened up the door for me to serve, doing the very thing that I promised her I would do. But this is what happens when self-interest and politics enters the scenes. It takes two people that should be working together. It puts them against each other to divide the community instead of bringing it together. I humbly ask for District 1's vote April 9th, but I also ask if you don't live in District 1 to tell someone from District 1 to vote April 9th, and not because of the great progress that has been made, but we must send a message to future politicians and candidates that these politics are unacceptable and will yield no progress if we are to live in a better district and the greater city of Champaign. Thank you, and I ask for your support April 9th, 2013. Will Kiles.
Thank you, candidates. And I'll just reiterate that Election Day is the 9th of April, and remember to vote. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.